When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Former Finance Minister Bill Morneau has just released a book talking about his time in government and some of the tension with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, saying that the Prime Minister favored political points over policy. Let's get more on this with one of our fantastic political analysts, David Heurtel, who just finished a spectacular run of hosting this show in Montreal now. You're back at work today for us, David, on this program. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be with you, Elias.
Okay, so Bill Morneau, stunner or snoozer?
It's a good question. I really think, Elias, time will tell, and very shortly, because, first of all, Bill Morneau, this is nothing really new. We knew there was acrimony between him, his staff, and the Prime Minister and his staff. So this is not really new. I think also Bill Morneau, let's face it, he's Toronto Bay Street finance. I think there was part of this that he wanted to reestablish, I think, certain facts about the spending, about where he stood on these things. But if he really wanted to go all out against the Prime Minister, I think this book would have been released when the House resumed sitting on January 31st, because then you could have had question period and you could have had the Prime Minister on the hot seat, and that could have been something to consider. I think what we're going to see over the next few days and weeks about Trudeau's future is finding out, like, for example, people like Mark Garneau, Anthony Housefather, Patricia Latanzio, who testified in those hearings before the holiday break on language and the inaction of the federal government on language. The fact that there could be some moves made by either Chrystia Freeland's people or Anita Annan's people about the poll that was released just at the beginning of this year, showing that the Prime Minister, most Canadians want to see somebody else heading the Liberal Party. The only thing saving Justin Trudeau right now from discussions on his replacements is the fact that Pierre Poilievre has so high unfavorables in the same type of polling. So I think if Bill Morneau could be an isolated incident, but if it starts adding up with other things, then you could turn back and say this was the start of maybe the end for Justin Trudeau, but it's still too early to tell.
You know, David, you know this, that finance ministers are often looked at as the next person to lead a party, to take over the reins, that kind of thing. Obviously, I know there was talk when Morneau was still in government. Now we hear it with Chrystia Freeland, right, the current finance minister. So there's always been that. But does this, and Morneau leaving the party, resigning when he did, does that highlight, and you mentioned some other names in the party, do you feel there is a schism internally inside the federal Liberals when it comes to maybe a more classical view of liberalism, a liberal classic, and sort of the new age liberal that we see from Justin Trudeau and some of his ministers?
I don't think we're at the point where we can say there's a schism, but there are disagreements. There's definitely the deal with the NDP and the shift to a more activist left that and other things have provoked over the last few years within the Trudeau government. There's definitely that conversation happening, and this was the fear actually with a conservative leader that could maybe exploit that. Now, right now, Pierre Poilievre is having trouble establishing himself. And in the polling, what's happening is that the NDP voters are flocking towards the Liberals, and that's what's saving the Liberals right now, as we saw in the by-election in Mississauga Lakeshore in Ontario in December. But otherwise, I think you're right in pointing that out. I think there are a lot of Liberals, more centrist Liberals, as you call them, more traditional Liberals, that are not necessarily comfortable with the spending, for example, and certain positions that are prompted by the deal with the NDP.
We're with David Heurtel. David, I want to move things along here and talk some policy with you. And this, listen, you spent a lot of time in government, and I wonder how these policy decisions are made and the things that go through ministers' heads. This is related, to health and drug use. I want to talk about overdoses in Quebec for a moment here. So this is a crisis that is not getting better. Some people are saying it's getting out of control. I was astounded by these numbers, the latest statistics. So 500 people in Quebec, right? This is the provincial numbers. 500 people died of suspected overdoses on opioids or other substances between October 2021 and September 2022. So 1 year, 500 deaths. And I know there's two ways of thinking. By the way, it's coming up federally. Pierre Poilievre is on this, by the way. He's coming out with videos on overdoses. And I know there's two views. There's one which is, you know what, we need to be progressive on this issue. We shouldn't stigmatize drug use. We should make it safer. And then there's the, hey, that's not working. We need to be tough. And, health policy and public policy, these are tough decisions. How do you view what's happening right now in this country when it comes to the opioid crisis, fentanyl, and how Quebec should be looking to other places and when it decides how to handle it here?
Well, it's an epidemic, and it's been an epidemic that was shadowed and overshadowed by, of course, the pandemic and other issues. But the problem with this is that while we can look elsewhere for maybe policy avenues to follow, the problem right now in the Quebec government, and it's not only in Quebec, but if you add this as a priority or a crisis point with the health and social services sector, the answer you're going to get within the government and the machine at the health ministry is, well, take a number. Because there's simply not enough people and resources to take care of this. This is what is really problematic at this point, is that while we've seen it and we talked about this problem through the emergency rooms and other aspects of the health and social services sector, the fact is that we are entirely too dependent for our frontline responses to the drug problem and the opioid problem in Quebec to the community organizations. So the health ministry has sort of subcontracted this frontline work to community organizations and community groups that do amazing work but are underfunded and understaffed. And so they just can't deal with it. So what you're going to have, again, is you're going to have people ending up where? In the emergency room. Because there simply aren't enough resources and just bodies, people, specialized people, to take care of this. So while maybe 5 years ago we could talk about this and say, okay, we could be law and order or we could be more treatment. My position would be more on the treatment side. But on the social treatment, because this is a sickness, you're not going to solve this. The U.S. went law and order, and it didn't work. So the fact is that I got to tell you here, this is another representation of the massive resource problem, the human resource problem that we have in Quebec.
David, at the end of this month, January 31st, BC will decriminalize, right? They will not be doing criminal charges for personal possession of small amounts of certain illegal drugs. Do you get the sense that the rest of the country, including Quebec, is going to just wait and see with BC, see how it works there before they start to make hard decisions on this one?
I think eventually we won't have any choice but to consider this. And it's going to be about a balance on this. I mean, in the U.S., certain very progressive cities and states are looking at this very carefully. But again, you don't want to get to a place where crime is already seemingly on the rise, and then you don't want to add to that. But definitely, I think eventually we won't have any choice but to look at that as one of the ways to deal with this epidemic.
Let's wrap up here with you, David. I'd love your thoughts. In the U.S., we saw the chaos in the House of Representatives. They got a speaker after 15 votes.
Yeah.
Brazil, chaos there. Anything but a peaceful transition of power over the weekend there. When you see that, and then you think about how we have it here in Canada, how we have it in Quebec, what are your thoughts?
Well, I got to say very quickly here, Elias, that what happened in the U.S. was fascinating. I followed it. I stayed up Friday till 12, Saturday early morning to watch the result. But the fact is, this already exists, for example, in Canada. I'll give you two very clear examples. Look what happens with the Liberal Party of Quebec with the whole Marie-Claude Nichols, Franz Benjamin, everything situation.
Yeah.
Everybody stayed on their position. Everybody was right. Nobody was coming together. Same thing with Quebec Solidaire. The big problem with Quebec Solidaire right now, and this is going to be one of the big challenges in 2023 for Quebec Solidaire, you have this extreme left faction of Quebec Solidaire that will not budge on a lot of positions that more centrist-leaning members want to take. And you're going to see that exploding in 2023 because, again, compromise is a dirty word in politics all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And we're going to see the same. We saw the same thing. Remember the Green Party, Annamie Paul, in 2021?
God. Yeah.
That was it. That was exactly. But this is the Canadian and Quebec expression of, and of course, I'm not comparing the Republicans to Quebec Solidaire or the Quebec Liberals or the Green Party. But this attitude in modern politics that I am right, you're wrong, and if you don't believe the same thing as I do, you are my enemy, and we cannot sit down anymore and come together. This is a real problem, and so we're going to be seeing more expressions of this in the next few months to come here in Quebec and in federal politics, I'm sure.
David, we'll catch up on Friday on the Big Five. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.